Testing, 1, 2, testing. Welcome to Pleasant Garden Baptist Church online. We're glad you've joined us for virtual church this morning. Welcome to Pleasant Garden Baptist Church online. We're glad you're joining us for virtual church this morning. We're grateful for all of you that are home folk, that are connecting with us, and for any of you that may be joining with us for the first time or you've not connected with us, we'd love to find out more about you and give you an opportunity to learn more about joining in with us. You can click on the link on our website at pgbc.com/connect. We'd love to have a record of your connection with us this morning. Here we are on a snow Sunday with the weather having slipped up on us and created a different kind of Sunday for us. And as I began to think about what a snow Sunday would look like, I couldn't get my mind off of the pauses that sometimes happen upon us like this morning, the pauses that come in different shapes and sizes. For some of those in our audience today, you may have experienced a pause on a delay for a college acceptance letter. You explored the opportunity to go to a couple of different places, and you were waiting for that letter from that one school you just hoped to get into, and you waited, and you waited, and you waited. Or for others of us, it may have been a delayed doctor's appointment, or even more heavily, a delayed diagnosis. Others of us have experienced the COVID delay. That's how we at our family at the Hefner home started out this year. My wife got COVID again, similar to when she got it last year. We're grateful that it was a mild run for her, and she's back up and out. And Joseph and I, neither one in the same house had any symptoms, but it caused a pause, a delay, a resetting of some of our expectations and our plans and our schedules, which for most of us is just not the American way, is it? I was reading psychologist Stephanie Brown all the way back in 2014. She wrote these words: "A patient arrived late to my office and tossed his cell phone on the sofa and pleaded, 'Can you help me control my phone? It's ruining my life.'" She went on to write these words: "This is progress in America. You always move forward, and there are no limits to how far you can go or how fast you can get there. Don't pause, don't reflect. You win or you lose. You fall behind and fail if you stop moving. Fast is at any cost is the mantra of a stressed and distressed American society today." Look, if we're not careful, any of us can get caught up in the hustle and bustle and the fast pace, and we can miss the message that God's sometimes speaking to us in the pauses. Even for me, as we step back into COVID quarantine the last couple weeks, God whispered and even shouted a couple of messages I think He was trying to say to me in this pause. First, for me, the pause invited me to reflect. I had time to think differently. I had more time to introspect, to ask some heart questions, whether those questions were spiritual, relational, or ministry focused. The pause was an invitation to reflect. It was also an invitation for me in that reflection to ask myself the question, where am I getting ahead of God? See, the truth is, when life pauses, whether it's like today or whether it's COVID or whether it's something else, oftentimes God's trying to get our attention and help us see where our effort, our energy, and our zeal we're pressing perhaps ahead of God's timeline or God's expectations or God's plan or God's agenda for our lives. The pause also exposed a button or two. My guess is I'm like a number of you. I don't like my plans being changed. I don't like my agenda being shifted. I don't like my calendar being wiped clean with a pause that I couldn't foresee. And what happens with me every time something brings a pause into my life like that is I start to see some places where that change in expectation or plan or calendar agenda pushes one or two of my irritation buttons. And God's always quick to bring that up in front of our eyes and in front of our heart, because He wants us to be aware of those places where we're more sensitive than we should be to our preferences, our likes, our plans, and our presumptions. The Paul's also invited me deeper into the Word. I am so eager for us to begin our journey through the book of Ruth, the gospel of Ruth, the message of God's rich and beautiful salvation in the pages of this short 4-chapter book in the Old Testament. And this pause for us gave me the opportunity to dig even more deeply and more intentionally into Ruth. But in that time in the Word, God also circled my heart and mind back around to a verse I had meditated on often in years gone by. Psalm chapter 46, verse 10. We're going to read that verse here in just a minute. But before I do, I want to frame what we're going to do for just a few minutes this morning against the backdrop of words C.S. Lewis wrote in a letter to a friend many years ago. He said this, he said, "We should stop regarding the unpleasant things as interruptions of our own real life, and we should see that these interruptions are precisely our real life. They're the life God is sending us one day by day." God sends us pauses and interruptions. They come on His timetable, according to His plan, according to His agenda, and where it tweaks or upsets or unsettles our plans or agendas, God's speaking. And God's longing for us to be people that embrace what His Word would teach us to do in the pauses. And that's what the psalmist calls our attention to in Psalm 46:10. I want you to listen to these words. "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." In the psalm, if you go back and read the verses before, you'll see the turmoil and the tension that was around the people of Israel, the nations and authorities and wars and struggles that were represented across the psalm. And what David is inviting us to consider in this simple verse is the importance that when chaos is around us, we should recognize that the hand of God invites us to see His majesty in the pause. And He commands us even to be still and to know that He is God. That verb in this verse, the verb be still, is a beautifully rich word in the original language. It's a word that has a variety of meanings, and what I want to do for just a moment or two while we're together is unpack that verb in three of its most specific meanings, and invite you and I on this morning and this Sunday, as things are a little bit different for us. I just want to invite you to obey the command to be still. And in this pause, David reminds us first to rest. The meaning of the word to be still in its first glimpse that we're going to consider is the meaning of resting. Most of us find ourselves eager to work. As a matter of fact, I was talking to Pastor Jonathan this week, and as he's easing back in, he shared with me how eager he is to get back into the groove, to to get back in the process of work. And as we were talking, I was reminded of how that's how most of us are wired. We like to have something to do. We like to know what we're going to do next. We like to have a plan and an order and a way, and we like to approach that work, some of us, with an attacking mindset. But the Bible would invite us to be people that remember that when pauses happen, God means for us to rest. The idea of that word resting is to relax, to stop our zealousness for just a moment, to take the tension out of our spiritual muscles, to pause and to listen to what God would say. God's consistently faithful to speak to us in our pauses. The invitation for us is to rest and listen so we can notice what He's saying to us in the midst of those pauses. There's another way this word plays itself out in the original language. The word be still doesn't just mean to rest. David also invites us in the pause to wait. The word carries the implication of waiting to the point where you would almost appear lazy. Waiting almost to the point to where it was an actionless, an effortless waiting, just waiting, stopping and waiting. And this is a word, this is an idea that's uncomfortable for many of us. As a matter of fact, some of us may have seen a video or a headline before a short clip that says, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. And we find ourselves watching the screen. And if you're like me, you can't even just wait for it without knowing how long the video is. So I often click into the video to see, am I waiting for 30 seconds? Am I waiting for 3 minutes? Am I waiting for 30 minutes? And depending on the length and the amount of time I've got, listen, if you could tell me to wait for it, but if you're going to ask me to wait for a while, I'm not going to give it that much time or that much patience. Many of the situations and circumstances in our lives, we don't have the benefit of the opportunity of clicking into that next thing we're dealing with and seeing its timetable. As a matter of fact, none of us have that. And we don't get the opportunity to look at life or that diagnosis or that relational tension or that concern at work and click into it and go, hey, you know what? I've only got to wait this out for another 3 days or for another 2 weeks or for another 5 years. We don't have the authority over our circumstances in such a way that gives us control over the time we wait. And yet, David says for us to be still. And he says for us to be still and wait. In the pause, we're invited to wait. Now, here in just a moment, I'm going to walk us through what we're waiting for. But before we do that, I want us to consider the third meaning that David gives us in this verse when he says for us to be still. That word also invites us to let go. In the pause, we're to let go. Be still means to rest. Be still means to wait. And be still means to let go. It's a meaning that's very closely parallel to the first one that gives the idea of resting or relaxing. And you and I can actually picture this one together for just a moment. I want you to take your hand and hold it up in front of you, and I want you just to grip your fist. And I want you to hold it there as tight as you can, just for a count of 5. Let's do that together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now let go. The process of blood rushing back into our fingertips, down through our arms, that sensation of relaxing is the emphasis that David is inviting us to apply spiritually. Be still, to relax, to let the tension go out of our muscles, to droop physically, but not just physically, to do so spiritually. We're commanded in Psalm 46:10 to relax or rest, to wait and to let go. Why? Why does God say these things to us in the midst of our chaos and our uncertainty and our turmoil? Well, it's captured right there in verse 46. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I'll be exalted in the earth. The reason David invites us to be people that rest, wait, and let go spiritually is that we're to be on the edge of our seats, anticipating God's identity, God's authority, and God's sovereignty in our situations and circumstances. The problem with most of us is that our lives are going so many different directions, sometimes so fast, sometimes so tenuous, we don't take the time to sit at the feet of Jesus and to wait for him, or to rest in his presence, or to let go and submit ourselves again to his authority and to his sovereignty and to his control. It's why it's so important that when God gives us an unexpected pause, we take the time to do just that, to be still, to wait, to listen, to learn, to know what he would have to say. My guess is, if we'll just apply that in these next few minutes or the next couple hours or the next few days, depending on how long this winter weather sticks around, God will speak loudly, faithfully, consistently, clearly to us. Maybe he won't give you a timeline for your difficulty or for your trouble. Maybe he won't tell you exactly when things are going to be fixed. Maybe he won't give you a clear next step besides what he's already told you to do, in being still, in resting, in waiting, in restraining your zeal and your effort. Maybe he'll just whisper, I'm here. Child, I've got you. I love you. I care about you. I want to walk alongside of you. I want to be with you. I want to encourage you. I want you to be one that trusts me, that sees me, that hears me, that pursues me, that listens to me. And our pauses in life invite us to do just that. Author Lillian Gill tells an amusing story about an event that happened with her and her husband some years ago. They were out driving and happened upon a gentleman who was driving a luxury car and a newer model at that. And they pulled up alongside of this car that was stopped on the side of the road with the hood up. And the person that was driving the vehicle was up in front of his car, rather agitated and frustrated. Apparently, he had been in a hurry to get to a business meeting. And he knew his vehicle was low on gas, and he thought he had enough to get there, only to realize he didn't when the car ran out of gas. And they stopped, and they happened to have a gas can with a gallon of gas in their vehicle, and they shared it with him, and he gratefully but very quickly put the gas into his vehicle and then sped off. 12 miles down the road, Mrs. Gilder and her husband happened upon the same man on the side of the road again with his vehicle hood up and even more agitated and frustrated this time, as instead of stopping at the gas station, he tried to force that gallon of gas all the way to his business meeting, and he was without gas again. Folks, some of us are doing that spiritually. We know our tanks are empty. We know the pressure's intense. We know we're in a hurry, and we try to cram in just a little bit of our closeness with God, just to get us through the next few minutes. And what's happening to some of us is we're getting just a few more miles down the road and we're at exasperation again. Why? Because we failed to really sit and be still. We failed to take the time and the pause to rest and to wait and to let go. Let me share with you why it's so vital, and so important, why it's so powerful for us to take God at His word in Psalm 46, verse 10. You realize I can rest and you can rest because God doesn't slumber or sleep. Do you realize that we can wait because God is always acting and He's always moving and He's always in and among His creation? Do you realize that you and I can let go because God's always holding on? I invite you this morning, wherever you're tuning in from, whatever it is that you're dealing with, whatever burden or frustration or anxiety or pressure that happens to be about in your life, take some time today to pause, to sit with Jesus, to ask Him for His graciousness, for His goodness, for His power and His faithfulness to be put on display in your anxiety and your situation and your difficulty. Be still before Him and watch and see if He doesn't reveal His identity like the psalmist promised. Be still and know that I'm God. I will be exalted in your situation and your circumstance. I'll be exalted in the chaos of this earth. Will you bow your heads and close your eyes with me for just a moment? I don't know what's weighing on your heart and life, but I know the burdens that continue to swirl in mine. And I could imagine that there's some tuning in right now who you're overwhelmed with a fear, a worry, an anxiety. You've not brought it to Jesus consistently, or you've tried, but you've not waited long enough on His presence. Or instead of running to Jesus, you've run to somebody or something else. You've tried to satisfy that need or that worry or that fear in some other way. And I just want to pray for you. I want to pray for me. Lord, you know our burdens, you know our worries, you know our fears, you know our challenges. God, you know our temptations. You know every need that's represented among us right now. God, you know where we're running from you. And God, you know where some are trying to run to you. And God, you know where some are trying to fix it themselves. And God, I just pray for all of us as you minister in our hearts and lives. God, right now in these moments, will you help us to be still before you? Will you help us to rest in your power? Will you help us to wait on your name and identity to reveal itself? God, will you help us to relax the tensions in our lives as we trust you to be with us, to guide us, and to be among us? Lord, we'll thank you and praise you for your closeness and your goodness and your might that you'll reveal on your behalf for our situations and circumstances. Lord, in all these things, we'll praise you and thank you in Christ's name. Amen. Thank you for joining us as we've gathered together virtually for this morning. We look forward to being back in a normal schedule. We would anticipate next Sunday and throughout the week with our activities. May God bless and keep each and every one of you. And be sure to find some time to be still in this pause. God bless you.